Welcome to Klaus's Kitchen. Today we are doing kale chips, a healthy, nutritious snack that you can have, much better for you than potato chips because it's full of nutrients. It will have some fat. We're going to use some olive oil, but an olive oil is a healthy fat to be using. So to get started, I have some kale here in a bunch, and the first thing I need to do is to wash this and dry it. So the easiest way to do that is I'm just going to run it under some cold water. And then I want to shake it off. We're going to even spin it dry. We don't want it to be wet when we use it because it'll make our kale mushy when we bake it up. And we want nice crisp kale like a crisp potato chip. So here I have my kale. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to just pull it apart. I don't want the ribbing, in other words, this thick part here, so I'm going to rip it off of that and throw it into my salad spinner. So give me a minute and I'll get all this ripped off and have it in the salad. So here I have my kale leaves all in my salad spinner, and I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on, and I'm going to crank it, and the centrifugal force is going to pull all the water away from the leaves. I can stop it, take a look at them, rearrange them a little bit. If I rearrange them, it helps to get even more of the water out. So I'll do that again. And I'm going to rearrange the leaves one more time because I do want to get as much water as possible off of the kale. Now I want a fresh, clean, dry towel that I can lay the kale out on so it can continue to dry. And so I will lay the kale out so the air can get to it and help it to dry. And I'm going to take my salad spinner. Just going to rinse it off for now. I'll get it washed here in a couple minutes. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to measure out the ingredients that I'll be using. And you guys have silver cups in your kitchen, but I don't have those in my kitchen. I have these small Pyrex cups that I'll be using. You're going to need anywhere from 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. The less you use, the better for your health. Okay, so I'm going to use about a tablespoon that I've put aside, maybe a tablespoon and a teaspoon's worth. Then I'm going to put my spices in here so that I can sprinkle them all together. You don't want to have too many spices because it will not taste so good if all you're getting is a mouthful of garlic. So I have in here some fresh cracked pepper. I'm going to put on just a little bit of sea salt. I love garlic on my kale, so here's just a little bit of garlic powder. And the other thing I like to use is some Mrs. Dash, and I have several of these. There's no salt in them, so these can add a lot of flavor without adding the salt. And so here I have Southwest Chipotle, so this is going to add a nice flavor. I'm going to put some in. It's been sitting for a while, it's thin, so I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some of this in, and it'll give it a little bit of kick. I like some heat on my kale chips. And then I'm going to mix all that together and sprinkle it over the top of the leaves when I'm ready to go. So my spices and my oil are all ready to go. Parchment paper is to make sure that nothing sticks to the pan. So what I've done is I've got some parchment here, and it's a little big for my pan. So I need to trim it so nothing hangs over the edges, because if I do have stuff hanging over the edges, it could burn or catch on fire. And that would not be a good thing. My pan with the parchment paper, notice I have none that will hang over the edges when I lay it down. That is key. Parchment paper can be used over several times and is fine until it starts to turn brown. So you can use it 3-4 times and then it's time for a fresh sheet. So what I want to do is lay my kale chips out so that there's none overlapping each other and it's on the parchment paper. Now if they overlap each other, they just won't crisp up. They'll just be kind of chewy. And that's really not great flavor or texture when the kale is not cooked all the way and it is kind of chewy. So I don't think I'm going to get all my kale on this pan, so that will be fine with what I have. Okay, so now we're going to drizzle just a little bit of olive oil over our kale. And we want to make sure we try and hit every leaf with the olive oil. Once we're done with the olive oil, then we need to sprinkle our seasonings over the top. And so you just need a little bit of seasoning on them. So here are the kale chips all ready to go into the oven and to be baked. We'll put them in a preheated oven, one that we've turned on and allowed it to heat up to 375 degrees. So here we go. My oven is preheated, and I'm going to go ahead and put them in the oven for about 15 minutes. I am going to check them at 10 minutes just to make sure that they're not getting too brown, but we do want the edges to turn brown. Okay, we're checking our kale chips now to see how they look, and they're starting to get a little crispy, but they're not quite brown enough yet, so we're going to let them go a little longer. Here are the kale chips, all done, nice and crispy. You can see some of the edges have browned up, and these will be a yummy treat once they have cooled down. Alright, I need to give a special thank you to a few people that make these videos possible. First is Klaus, who is my helper and videographer. So, good job, Abby. Even though you might cut a head off every now and then, that's okay. Everybody loves your work. I also need to thank Ian and Luke, who do all my video editing. Thanks, guys. You do an awesome job. Thanks for joining us for Klaus's Kitchen today.